Greetings everyone and welcome to another Citizens Corner. Of course, I am Jarvis. With me as always, my bastion of common sense, Lightning Dragon.
Yo!
For those of you who don't know, Citizens Corner is where we go ahead and answer questions, either specific or general from the community. So if you made a comment, you don't see it here. It's not because we don't appreciate it. It's just that maybe it was thematically similar to others or whatnot. So let's go ahead and get to it. The first thing I want to cover is kind of a bunch of general comments or general questions that can be summed up kind of along the lines of what do we see with turret functionality in the future. And I kind of have my point of view on this a little bit. I think that when it comes to turrets, the automation is kind of a byproduct of pacing, dealing with the fact that because they are restricted from how quickly ships can maneuver, they can't go beneath a certain point, and that tracking is very difficult at that pacing with a human being in there. Automation is going to become more common in large regards. I think you're going to see the seats, unless they make this change and fix the problem with gunnery to reduce pacing speed, seats are going to become backups. Like, oh, we lost the automated system, so go ahead and jump back into the seat and run the turret manually. It seems to me that that's going to become the preferred choice. I also see turrets as possibility of being kind of a more utilitarian point on the ship, but maybe you could swap out, say, for example, on the Retaliator, you could swap out a couple turrets for a couple AMSs and have them protect your ship from incoming missiles, like maybe one on the top or one on the bottom or whatever the case may be.
And the funny thing is, technically, we've already got this with the Aquila, because it has, you remove that top turret and you have a sensor package that goes in its place. And this also extends to the Hornet, where you have the ball turret, you have the stealth module, or you have the cargo. I mean, some of these things already exist, but they're more like exclusive just to that ship.
Yeah, they're more designed to fit that particular ship as opposed to generic. Yeah,
so it's one of the things that it's not really a big stretch to basically turn it into, oh, well, turrets, a class 4 mount fits these types of things, and then what type of ship allows you to be like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to get stealth modules for, the Retaliator, right? I mean, no, you'd have like, oh, well, maybe you can put a sensor package in there, so you turn it into a long-range bomber into a scout ship, Oh,
yeah,
well,
imagine what you could do with that. That'd be amazing. You put a couple of sensor packages and replacements for turret positions. I mean, you could turn the Retaliator into, because you've got the like the personnel unit, you got the living quarters, you got the cargo, you get that swappable ability. If you let the turrets have these kind of functionalities that can be swapped out, you could turn the Retaliator into a deep space, exploration vessel. I mean, the Retaliator is one of the better modular ships out there, since it not only has a great bombing capability, but the fact that they've given you the forward and back can individually be swapped out to other functions.
Yeah, I think cargo and bombs or torpedoes are the only two, but I want to say personnel too. Personnel too. Oh yeah, the dropship variant. Mm-hmm. So it's possible you might get a extra living quarters or something.
Yeah, so or they have one area with like sensor scan, like this particular section of the ship now has high-tech computers for doing scans and stuff like that.
Or, encroach upon the info running, with the
computer data banks and stuff like that. Absolutely. That's why I love modular ships, and so that goes back to the 600i thing. That's I like ships to say right off the bat, this modular and the interior can be swapped out. So that's a big selling point for me. So yeah, lots of different functionality that's possible when it comes to these turrets. I mean, now that they've got, for the most part, more of a universal approach to the sizes on turrets, and like things like airlocks, and on a lot of these turrets, you go up and sit in them, and an airlock closes off, and things like that, which is another great innovation to the next great starship, was why they need to do something like that again. But generally speaking, I think turrets are going to offer, or at least should offer, this kind of functionality to really expand what ships are capable of. All right, so our first official question From Mr. Lotengo. Why do you think the devs are reworking specific ships when they still have so many ships that are unfinished? Well, that's a real good question. I think it has to come down to the fact that a lot of the ships they're just reworking are the ones that the players are already flying, and that they're trying to make them compatible with a lot of the new systems that are coming online. Because when you're like going from, for example, the pipeline system we have right now to what's coming in item system 2.0, and sometimes there's physical changes that have to be made to make the parts fit, because they're trying to make things be represented the correct way, or at least the way that makes sense in lore. And people are already flying those ships. You have two options. You can either go in there and revamp that ship and make everything work, or you can basically remove that ship from gameplay. I mean, essentially speaking, you would keep it in, but you'd have to fake a lot of stuff. I think they're trying to go for, let's stop what we're doing right now, fix all these ships that we have that are flying, make them look correct, make them work correct, and then we'll from that point, we'll go forward. We'll look at these other ships that are from these other manufacturers. I mean, you can kind of look at the Caterpillar in that regards, how they went back and have now used that to influence other Drake ships and things like that. And
they can do this in lore too, like, let's say the 300 series, right? 300 series is getting a big, huge overhaul. So if it was the 25.99 or whatever, they can be like, oh, well, now there's the 2630 edition, all new design, sleeker, better, stronger, faster, and they can make a whole spiel about that. And it'd be kind of interesting to have that. And it's something I've mentioned before, that a lot of the, like, oops, we forgot to do something, they can easily, which unfortunately, as far as I've seen, they haven't, can easily explain this stuff out by saying it's a newer model.
Yeah, I agree. I think like a lot of times you see the old commercials for ships, and you can kind of say, wow, that's the way it used to look. I like those old commercials, because to me it's a little bit kind of a marker. It's like, here's where we were, here's where we are now, and you just kind of wonder, where are we going to be, in a couple years. And like, look at the Freelancer. I mean, look how much that's changed over time. That thing's really come a long way. It's so much better now. I think it's had like at least 3 revisions, or at least 2 revisions, major ones anyway.
They know they changed the way the glass was, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and because the visibility was a big issue.
Right, and then I know they've redesigned like the overall like hull and shape a little bit to help make it fit better with one of the newer systems, but I don't know if they've done a third one. But honestly, I would not be surprised if they did.
Yeah, that's why it's backtracked a little bit. I said 2, because it was the windows and then it was the overall body. So it's one of those things.
They needed to make it bigger to accommodate the storage, I think. Exactly.
So this is just, in some regards, this was a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, and it's caused a lot of these revisions. As Lightning and I like to refer to it as first ship itis. There's been a lot of ships that have been kind of suffering from that. The Hornet was kind of a big one. I mean, how many revisions has that had now?
Too many.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that I feel that they're just still trying to get those starter ships right before they move on. Those initial ships that they let people fly with. And once they get set and get those the way they want them, they'll move on. They'll work on the next ships. It'll happen. I have a Redeemer. If anyone should be complaining, just saying. Alright, so I have a question here from Hammy. I want to see discussion on the prices of ships and the prices of using ships. Because frankly, I disagree with a lot of people. A lot of people talk about how each ship will be so expensive and cost so much to use, and how great operating costs will be. And eventually, I just have to say no. Well, I think when it comes to the prices of ships, generally speaking, that they need to kind of use a kind of a logarithmic curve. Basically,
place screenshot here.
Exactly. And you should be able to move at a fairly consistent pace, but it should get further and further out as you move along. Luckily, there's they say 80 something ships now, without counting all the variants and Star Citizen that are being developed. There should be a good amount of options
The basic thing with this is they have to figure out what they want to see the most of and make it where that's kind of like where you peak, and then from there it kind of levels out, and it's like, okay, well, you're probably not going to be earning an Idris, but it's a very real possibility that you can easily get into like a Polaris or other Corvette-sized ships, like the 890 Jump, I believe, is in that same category.
So basically, let's use Elite Dangerous as an example here. I know it's a sore point, but bear with me. They don't have as many ships as Star Citizen is going to have by a long shot. But Lightning can attest to this, that there's parts in there, because there's these gaps in ships, that the grind becomes extremely long, and you get a real sense of feeling like you're not really progressing. And I think this is why they introduced things like engineers and whatnot, to kind of give you something else to do. Like while you're making money, you can try to do upgrades, but that engineer system, I think, is pretty terrible. It's random number generator. And
also, I'd like to add an addendum onto this, that we know that there are certain ships that are designed where, like, you can play this ship for your entire career if that's what you want. But there's a lot of people, myself included, that like to see a steady progression up to the point where, like, okay, well, I have the biggest ship, or I can get the biggest ship, but after playing, like, I'd rather use Eve as an example. But like in Eve, I got up to the point where I was flying battleships. I liked playing battleships, but I had the skills, or very near the skills, to go into like carriers or something, but I didn't want to go into carriers because of the role and kind of the gameplay style that they offered. So I dialed back and I put more focus into battleships. So what you can do is be like, oh, well, I can buy an Anaconda, but I actually prefer like my Python or whatever for the elite equivalent, and then you can spend more time upgrading that and making it, you know, how you want it and tailoring it.
Yeah, it's like I fly Python because that's the ship I like the most, and that's just my preference. Now, there's gonna be a lot of people out there that, you know, they're just gonna want to stick with the lower end ships because that's their preference. It's simple for them. You know, it's like, hey, I don't have to put a lot of, you know, I can upgrade the heck out of this ship. I don't have to put a lot of, I don't have to turn this game into a grind fest. But, you know, as you get large ships, of course, there's gonna be missions to support it. I don't think that, you know, they talk about these operating costs. Will the operating costs increase? Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a larger ship, more fuel, and more NPCs, things like that. You know, but there's going to be missions to support it. So I can't see them, for example, like once again, referring to Elite, where I went from the first ship to the second ship, took me a while to move out of that, you know, the as we call it, the nacho, the sidewinder, before I could move up to, say, the super nacho.
I think the Sidewinder is the Dorito.
The Dorito, that's right.
And the Cobra Mark III is the Super
Nacho. That's right. No, it was the Viper. It was the Nacho, and I mean, then it was the Super Nacho. Anyway,
nicknames.
Nicknames. So anyway, so yeah, the thing is that to move from the first ship to the second ship took a bit of grinding, but it's funny because as you're up higher, my risk is much greater. Like my insurance on my Python is like 6 million. If it was to get blown up, right? And the money I can make on a run would be enough to buy like 20 of the starting ships and like upgrade the heck out of them. So eventually, you know, what you're going to make is going to be proportional to what your expenditures are going to be, but as well, the risk is higher. So with the insurance system in Star Citizen, what you're also risking, besides the, you know, maybe if you're doing a cargo run, you have all this extra cargo you're carrying, you could lose all that cargo. Say you're not doing a cargo mission, you buy iron ore at Station A and you take it over to Station B. You're risking everything that you're carrying in the process. So it's one of those things that it really comes down to risk versus reward and the proportion of it. They're going to support it. It'll be fine. Will I be taking something out like my Polaris every day? Absolutely not. That's going to be like a
weekend warrior.
Yeah, weekend warrior guild event, fun event ship. But most of the time, I'm going to be running around in stuff like, you know, like the Cutlass Blue, freelancers, things like that. Even though
my main ship, if I can customize it enough, it's going to be the Retaliator. I like the style. I like if they can get it right, the armor and defenses it has. But if I want to do like basic cargo runs, I have the Taurus. You know, it's going to be able to what?
Well, to make your turrets automated, you have to go down a size of weapons. So you have to have size 0 guns. Sorry, you have size 1. So you automate your turrets to go to size 0. Sorry.
And another thing to add on to this, besides the like the types of ships, but actually in the same vein of like the same idea. Now, I don't think there's going to be, like, if you have an Idris, right? Let's say you have an Idris and you have a Hornet, right? And you pull out your Idris like, yeah, I got like 3 friends, we're going to do the Idris. I don't think you're going to get a mission that's going to pay for that ship. Because we're going to have a somewhat persistent, if not exclusively persistent, like items. So if you are going to do a cargo run, and you're like, yeah, we're going to use the Idris because it's got more guns and stuff and can carry this much stuff. It'll be awesome. And you fly to a station, maybe they only have a third of your total cargo that you can load up, and it's pretty worthless goods. Well, odds are you probably don't want to take the Idris for that because of the operating costs. But if you take something over there like the Hull B or something, it's more than enough to fill that up. It's going to be cheaper to run it. So I think there's going to be more incentive on having like the right ship for the right job, and hopefully you're going to see more of that. Like, oh, I don't need to take out this big ship because there's not that much cargo to haul. But when you get to those missions where it's like, oh, we've got 100,000 tons of gold, we need to ship it, well, then you can pull out your big ships and you can go out there and haul them. Or like, oh, we've got reports of a Vandal, Vanguard force, not actually the Vanguard, the ship, but like an advanced, squad of ships, lots of fighters, maybe some medium to large class ships. So that's when you'd be like, oh, well, we better take out the Idris because, you're going to be being paid a lot more to deal with the higher threats or the larger cargo. And I think that's really what's going to happen by the things they've said and what they've shown. But they definitely need to work on the economy right now. It's just completely broken. Again, going back
it's not even broken. It just doesn't exist.
That too. But again, going back to Elite for this, not Elite, but Eve. They both start with E, damn it. Going back to Eve. I personally hope that they do more of an Eve style, where like, oh, it's, let's say it's 100,000 UEC to buy an Aurora or whatever, right? But you can easily spend, 100,000 on like sensors or weapons and shields, and then if you want to upgrade those, maybe there's another 5 or 10,000. So you're putting more money into that ship to make it last longer. So to get into those ships will be a lot cheaper. So let's say you have the basic Aurora and you have the cargo variant. So you do a couple cargo runs and you're like, oh, well, I have 20,000 UEC. Do I want to just put that back into the ship I'm using right now, just kind of keep it going for a little bit longer because it's got lower operating costs, better fuel economy or something? Or do you want to just upgrade right to like an Avenger so you can take on maybe some light combat missions as well as cargo? Because, we love the Avenger and its versatility that it can do. And so you might consider like, I'd rather upgrade and then like buy that ship and run it with like the basic stuff, and then really customize that ship with the types of shields you want, types of weapons you want.
Yeah, like even in Elite Dangerous, I never buy the next tier up ship unless I can upgrade the heck out of it first. I need to have that money and have enough money to cover the insurance. I mean, I never want to just upgrade a ship and run the next one on the bare minimums anyway.
So I mean, it really depends on how they do the economy. I don't think if you fly in with your Hull E, it's going to auto-populate a mission for your Hull E. I think it's going to pull from like what's on the station or the dynamic universe that's going on, because we're only like 2 to 5% of the universe as far as players and things, players to AI. So maybe there's a huge
10%.
10%, okay. So maybe there's a huge battle going on somewhere, and it's like, we need fighter pilots, you know, bring every combat ship you have to this place, and there's gonna be like a really, really high reward for it, and maybe like bonuses for confirmed kills. So you're like, oh wow, you know, grab your combat ships, you know, and you want to fly out there. Or maybe it's one of those things where like, oh well, we don't really have a lot of goods. But like maybe it's a long travel distance, so you know, oh well, you know, you only want like a Connie or maybe a Hull A or a Hull B at the most, but it's, you know, jump like 2 or 3 systems away, and you get more money because it's a longer travel time. So I think we're going to see a lot of different mission options, but I think the pay is really going to depend on like how much and where it's going.
I think one of the things you're going to see different when it comes down to the game itself, where you have a difference between something like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, is that I feel that you would have a much greater benefit in Star Citizen retaining your older ships and just acquiring new ones to add to your pool. Where I often feel that in Elite Dangerous, it's, you know, it's just expedient to, especially with the size of the galaxy. Now they have added ship, you know, transportation services to move your old ships to you at your new location. But generally speaking, the roles aren't that big of a difference in Elite. Once you get past a certain point, everyone can kind of do a certain amount of cargo. Everyone can do certain, you know, combat a certain way, for the most part. But in Star Citizen, there's a greater variety. I mean, you're not going to take out your mining ship into a combat mission. It's specifically made for that.
You mean I can't take my Orion and use the you know, industrial grade mining laser to burn a hole through the side of a ship?
You can try. I didn't say it was successful. But it's one of those things that, you know, because there's such a variety of different kinds of jobs, you know, like the Herald, like the Orion, you know, like the Reclaimer, things like that.
The TV news van.
Yeah, exactly. All you're doing, well, in Star Citizen when it comes to ships, is opening up new gameplay types, and you know, so it is the economy thing. The economy is complex. But, you know, I guess, you know, the really, really short of this incredibly long answer is it'll be fine. People worry saying that you won't be able to support ships at a high end are completely and totally, utterly wrong. Because they won't design a game that punishes you for using ships that are in the game. No game designer is going to do that. That's just, no. It's not going to happen.
And if they do, we have the benefit of making a big stink on the forums about it, and odds are they're gonna be like, "Oh crap, sorry guys, we kind of screwed that up. Yeah. Hang on, let's adjust things." Because, I mean, we've already seen them change things. So...
If they screw that up, Lightning and I guarantee you are gonna make a video, and it's going to be scathing, and it's going to be right on their general page. I will happily do that. That is absolutely something I can guarantee you about this channel. I will go basically, you done effed up. That's all it's gonna be. That's all I'm gonna do. And as the last point here about the prices of ships as they go up, I think you're also going to be looking at a very similar curve that I was talking about, because of the fact that rare materials, as you go up in size, it's not just like you're adding or doubling the amount of iron. You're doubling the amount of, you know, moderate to rare to super rare materials that are going into them. So it's a very similar curve. Like that curve that I showed is basically the similar curve what you see for the cost of computers versus the differences in the speed. Like you may spend an extra $1,000 to get like an extra 2 or 3% of performance out of your system, where if you go, you know, the previous $1,000 may have given you an extra 10%, and so on and so forth. Just as a quick number. So it's one of those things that the curve you get less and less out of it the further and further you go, or in this case it costs you more and more with more and more rare resources and things in it. So yeah, the curve will dictate a lot of different things. All right guys, well that's about everything for this week's Citizens Corner. Feel free to leave comments down below, and we will see you on the upcoming Blastcast.
Womp womp womp.